Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to knowledgescavenger.com. As always, my name is Nathan and I'll be your host, instructor, teacher for this lesson. This lesson is all about backups. So, backups, I think, are one of the most important things that any person and every person should know about and should be doing with their computer. That's why I've decided at this very, very early stage in the lessons or teaching of this site, I was going to do a lesson on backups, just so that you guys can know all about them and have them on your computer. So if there's ever a disaster, you guys are covered. As always, we're going to start up with some vocabulary. Now, in this lesson, there's a lot of technical words being thrown around, a lot of them related to backups and just different types of backups. So there's a fair bit of vocabulary for this lesson. Just go through it with me now, and once we start getting into the practical part of the lesson, you'll probably start to understand a lot of it a lot more. But yeah, a lot of it's sort of interrelated anyway, so it shouldn't be too hard. Alright, so a backup. Backup is essentially a copy of your data that you create and you keep in the event that the original source becomes damaged or destroyed or lost or stolen, or you lose it in any way. A backup, you keep your backups so that you can restore them in the event of a disaster. That's the most important thing to know. A restore basically means to bring back into existence or to bring back to original condition. So in simplest terms, the way that you can sum up restoring a backup is that you are bringing back into existence whatever data you lost before the backup. Now, this lesson is going to focus solely on backing up data, not restoring, but there will be a part 2 to this lesson coming very shortly afterwards, which will cover restoring your data that you create in this backup lesson, restoring the backups that you create in this backup lesson. Now, a backup source, that's the location of the data that you want to back up. So if you wanted to back up, say, all of your music, then the source would be whatever folder all of those music files that you wanted to back up are in. The backup destination, that's where the backup is going to be kept. So if you wanted to back up all of your music and keep it on an external hard drive that you have, the backup destination is that external hard drive or a USB drive or whatever you want to put the backup files on. An offsite backup, it's a term used to describe when your backup will be stored in a different physical location to where your computer is. So if your data that you want to back up is on your computer, which is at your house, then you create a backup to an external hard drive, and you take that external hard drive to your friend's house and ask them to keep that backup drive for you, the external hard drive that your backup is on, then the backup is considered to be off-site. It's not in the same location as the original data. An on-site backup is used to describe when your backup is stored in the same physical location. So if you were to back up to an external hard drive again, but you kept that external hard drive in your drawer next to your computer, then the backup is still on site. If you keep your backup on the second floor of your house and your computer is on the first floor of your house, it's still considered on site because it's in the same physical building, the same physical location. Now, this is where it can get a bit confusing. You may think external backup and internal backup are the same thing as on-site and off-site, but no, it's slightly different. So it can mean the same thing as off-site backup. External backup can mean the same thing as off-site backup, but usually when you're saying external backup, you mean that your backup is on an external piece of equipment to where the original files are. So when you're backing up, when your original files are on your computer and your backup of those files is on an external hard drive, that you can unplug from your computer and put somewhere else, that's an external backup. Or if you put the backup on a CD or a USB drive, it's the same thing. Anything that you can make external, like remove from the original location where the files are, it's an external. Internal is, it can mean the same thing as an on-site backup, but it can also mean when your backup files are on the same physical equipment as the original data. So if you have your files on, if you have your original files on your computer and then you just make a copy of those files and put them in a different folder on your computer, but it's still on the same piece of hardware, it's an internal backup. Now, a local backup. See, there's all these sort of terms that describe the location of where the backup is, so it can get a bit confusing, I understand, but just try and stay with me. A local backup is a type of backup where your backup is done to a device that is physically attached to your computer somehow. So if I'm going back to the common example I've been using of an external hard drive, your original files are on your computer, you make the backup to an external hard drive. Because that backup device that you were using, because the external hard drive was attached to your computer when you made that backup, it was a local backup. Now, an online backup is a bit different. An online backup is where your backup files are sent off to the internet somewhere. So your original files are on your computer, you're not backing up to an external hard drive or anything like that, you're backing up to somewhere else out on the internet. And we'll cover both versions, a local backup and an online backup, but you just need to know the difference there. Now finally, the last term we have here, you won't really see this used too much, but I just wanted you to make aware of it. A system image, it's a special type of backup that will allow you to repair your operating system if it becomes damaged. So in the last lessons we talked about operating systems and what they are. Windows 7, Windows 8, they're your operating systems. If that somehow becomes damaged and your computer can't start up properly, if you've got a system image, you can use that system image to repair your Windows basically and restore it to how it was at some point in the past. Now I'm going to show you how to make a system image. I'm not going to show you how to restore one. If your computer gets that badly damaged that you need to try and that you can't even start it up and you need to try and worry about system images or anything like that, at this early stage you're probably better off just taking it to an IT guy to repair it. But if you've got a system image, it'll make his job a lot easier. Now, something that I try and stress to people when I talk about backups that a lot of people don't understand until it happens to them is that they should make multiple backups, more than one. A lot of people, don't even back up at all until they're hit with disaster, and then they realize, oh, I should have had a backup. They start backing up from that point, but they still make the mistake of only having the one backup. So they make a backup of all of their data to the one external hard drive, and then they maybe just keep backing up and adding all the new data that they've had since the last week. They'll do a backup every week, but they'll only do the one, and they'll only do it to that one external hard drive. So then they get into a situation where their computer dies, they go to restore from the external hard drive, and they realize, oh, the external hard drive is dead as well. So I'm just going to give you a couple of scenarios to show you why multiple backups are important and how you can save yourself a lot of heartache basically. So these are the scenarios that I made for the lesson. I don't know where I came up with them, but yeah. So, first scenario. You go away on a lovely trip to Japan with your friends. You've been saving all year for this trip, and you have wanted to go since you were too young to afford a toy of Godzilla, let alone a trip to Japan. You take lots of photos and have the best time of your life. When you get home, you copy these photos to your computer, and being the responsible and computer savvy person that you are, or you soon will be, you make a backup of these photos to a CD, which you leave in your drawer. One day, sadly, your house burns down. Very morbid, I know. Your computer and the CD both go up in flames, all the photos are turned to ash, and your only memories of Japan are in your head. So how could this have been prevented? Well, in an alternate reality, not only do you copy the photos to a CD, you also put them on a USB disk that you give to your friend to keep at their house for you. So then your house burns down, but hey, the photos are on a USB drive at someone else's house. You have multiple copies and everything's safe. Second scenario, in an alternate reality, you have the same amazing trip and you make the same backup of the photos to a CD. You give your friend a USB with the photos and all seems good in the world. Next week, there are a string of robberies in your area. Your friend and your houses are both hit, and the robbers steal both your copies, both of your computers and the CDs and USB sticks, thinking there is something valuable on them. How could this have been prevented? Well, because you are super prepared for disaster, you also backed up those super important photos to the internet using an online backup service. And yes, I admit that the above scenario is very, very unlikely to happen, but the point I'm trying to make is the more backups that you have, the surer you can be that your data is safe in the event of any disaster. You know, if you've got a backup to an external hard drive that you keep at your house, and then you also make a backup to a second external hard drive that you give to a friend or something like that, and then you've also got an online backup, I mean, there's a very very small chance that all three of those backup options are going to be obliterated, you know, in the amount of time that it takes you to get your computer back up and running, and you know that you need to restore the data. You know, it's you know, more likely than you'd think that a single backup would be obliterated somehow, but the chance of 3 or 4 different backups all getting obliterated at the same time, it's very, very unlikely. So more backups that you have, the more chance you have of being able to recover them. Alright, so now we'll get started into some actual practical parts, and I'll show you how to create some backups. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through 2 methods of local backup, one being the Windows backup software that's installed in both Windows 7 and Windows 8, and I'm also going to go through doing a manual backup, which is basically just making a copy of the files to a new location. Those are the 2 local backup methods that I'm going to go over, and I'm also going to go over an online backup method. I'm going to talk about the different online backup applications that are out there, and I'll show you a demo of how to set one up and how to start using it. Alright, so let's get started. Okay, so I am going to go over the local backup stuff in both Windows 7 and Windows 8. I'm going to start off with Windows 7 though. So if you're using Windows 8 and you want to see how the backups are done in there, I'll put some notes in the description on what exact times the local backup stuff starts for Windows 8. So just click on those links in the notes and it'll skip you ahead to that part of the video, so you don't have to worry about it. But if you are using Windows 7 and want to know how to do it on Windows 7, then this is the place to start for you. Alright, so I'm going to start off with the Windows backup software that's built into Windows 7 itself. So to get there, click on Start and then go to Control Panel. And now, depending on what view you are using in Control Panel, you're either going to have to click on Back Up Your Computer underneath System and Security if you're using the category view, and that will take you to this screen. Or if you're using either the large icons or the small icons view, then you want to click on Backup and Restore, and it'll take you to the exact same screen. Now once you're here, Before you continue, I just want to make clear that with the Windows backup software, you need to either have an external hard drive or a USB drive to do the backup to. Windows backup won't let you create your backup to a local partition on your computer. You need to have some sort of external device to back up to, and it can't be a CD either. So once you've got a USB drive or an external hard drive and you've got it plugged in and you're ready to continue, then click on Setup Backup. Once you click on Setup Backup, it's going to start the Windows backup thing, and it's going to ask you where you want to save your backup. So for me, I'm using this external hard drive that I've got here, and it's going to tell me that obviously that's recommended because it's the only one. If you've got more than one external hard drive or USB drive or whatever plugged in, it'll give you a list of all of them. Now you can also save to somewhere else on the network, but that's a bit more advanced, so I'm not going to cover that in this lesson. Once we've covered more sort of stuff around networking and everything like that, if people really want to know how to do it, then I'll create a guide for that. Alright, so once you've clicked next, it's going to ask you what you want to back up. Now it'll give you the option to let Windows choose, or it'll give you the option to choose yourself. Now if you let Windows choose, I'll show you exactly what it's going to back up. So if we open my computer, so these libraries here, it's going to back up all of those, as well as what is on your desktop. So it'll back up anything you have on your desktop, as well as these 4 libraries here: documents, music, pictures, videos, and it will also create a system image, which I was talking about in the vocabulary section, that will allow you to restore your computer if it stops working for whatever reason. That's probably a pretty safe option to go with, to let Windows choose if you're not too sure. But just so I can show you what sort of more advanced options you're going to get if you choose Let Me Choose, we're going to select that and we're going to click Next. Okay, so then it's going to give us what doesn't look like too many options. However, anything that's got these little sort of arrows next to it, you can click on those arrows and it will drill down further, so it'll let you see some additional stuff. So by default, what it's got ticked is basically the same things that it was going to back up for you itself if you let Windows choose. Now that's probably the safest option, because it's going to back up everything underneath your user account, and most people are going to be storing most of their files underneath their user account. However, if you wanted to back up specific folders that you're going to need or that are critical to you that aren't under those locations, you can go down here to the C drive and drill down and choose whatever you want to back up manually, and it will create a backup of those folders and all the files in them. What I'm going to do for now is just have Decoy's libraries ticked, which is my user account and my libraries, and I'm also going to make sure I include a system image of drives. Once I've got those options ticked, I'm going to click Next. You can tick whatever options you want, by the way. Now it's going to give me this last screen where it asks me about reviewing my backup settings. So it's going to confirm that the backup location is the external hard drive that I have, and it's going to confirm that these are the folders that I'm backing up. Now if you also look down here, you'll see that this backup runs on a schedule. So every Sunday at 7 PM it's going to create a new backup of every single thing that I've told it to back up. So if anything changes from week to week, if I add new files, if I delete files or whatnot, it's going to create a backup of all the new data however it is on Sunday at 7 PM. If I wanted to change that schedule, all I'd have to do is click change schedule, and I can either turn the schedule off so that the backup will only run whenever I tell it to, or I can leave the schedule on and I can choose to do it daily, weekly, monthly. I can choose a day, I can choose the time, and anything like that. If I choose daily, it's obviously not going to give me a day, it's just going to give me a time. If I choose monthly, it's going to ask me what day of the month I want the backup to occur on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it as weekly, and I'm going to leave it as 7 PM just for now, because this is a test backup, but you can change those settings however you want. And it's going to give you a message about a system repair disk may be required to restore your system image. Don't worry too much about that. If you ever need to use your system image to restore it and you're taking it to someone who, you know, is an IT person who repairs computers, they're probably going to have a system repair disk, and if they don't, then I would ask what they do for their job. So yeah, don't worry too much about that. So once you've got all that you know, confirmed and happy the way that you want it, just choose save settings and run backup. And what that's going to do is it's going to run your very first backup right now on the spot, and it's going to back up all of those files that you told it to back up. So you just have to wait for this backup in progress to finish. It may take a while depending on how many files or how little files you have, because this is a pretty bare bones computer. I've just built this computer up specifically for this lesson. It's not going to have a lot of data, so as you see, the backup is running fairly quickly. On my normal computer that I use when I've tried to run Windows backup in the past, it's taken several hours to do the backup, which is fairly normal. That's why usually if you're going to run a backup, you would run it at a time when you're not using your computer, or you know you're not going to use your computer for a while. So, you know, like a Sunday night at 11 PM or something. There is one thing that you do need to know about Windows backup though. In order for the backup to run at the scheduled time every single week, your computer needs to be on for the entire length of time that it takes for the backup to run. So if you set your backup to run at 11 PM on Sunday night, but you normally turn your computer off at that time, you either need to remember to leave your computer turned on, or you need to change the time that the backup occurs to a time when you know your computer will be on for long enough for the backup to run. Alright, so this is taking a little bit longer than I thought, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video for now, and I'll come back once the backup is finished running, and I'll tell you what is coming next. Okay, so the backup has finished, and as you can see, it takes you back to this screen here. Now from this screen you've got a couple of options. You can either choose to back up now, and that will create another backup on the spot, or you can see here it will tell you when the next backup is meant to occur, when the last backup occurred, confirms all the details of the schedule, what files are getting backed up and everything. You can change those settings. If you click change settings, it's going to take you through that same wizard that you used to set up the backup in the first place. And it's also going to give you some options to manage space. So you can, so if the space on your external hard drive or USB drive or whatever you're using to do the backup is getting pretty low, you can view your backups, see how big they are and from what period the backup was from, and it'll let you delete them so that you can free up some space. Other than that, that's pretty much it for Windows backup. It will run all by itself as long as you've got your external hard drive plugged in and your computer is on. When the time comes around for the backup to occur, it'll just run seamlessly in the background. You won't have to think about it, it'll just be there and it'll work. So that's Windows backup out of the way. Now the only other thing that I wanted to show you when it comes to local backups is how to do a manual backup. So a manual backup is basically just making a copy of all of the files that you want to back up and pasting them into the backup location. So we covered copying and pasting in the basics of Windows 7 video, but you'll sort of see how it works again when we go through it now. So I'll just run you through a demo. I'll click start and go to computer, and let's say I wanted to create a manual backup of my documents. Okay, there's nothing in my documents. My music. So this sample music folder, let's just say that this folder is very important to me and I want to back it up and I want to make sure that I've got it in case something ever goes wrong and I lose it. Well, to do a manual backup, what I would do is right click on that folder and choose copy, or I would use the keyboard shortcut for copy, which is to hold the control key and press the C key. Then I would go to computer and find my drive that I want to back it up to, which is this one here, and then I would either go into this backup folder that I've created earlier, or into whatever folder that I want to store it on, and then I would right click and choose paste, or I would do the keyboard shortcut for pasting, which is the control key plus the V key, and it's going to make a copy of that folder on my backup drive. If we go back to the music library, we'll see the sample music still there, but it is also here on my backup drive. That is a manual backup. That's all there is to it. It's basically just choosing the files and the folders that you want to make a backup of, copying them, and then pasting them in the backup location. It's as simple as it gets. So that's it. That's the local backups for a Windows 7 machine. Now I'm going to switch over to Windows 8, and I will do the same process on Windows 8, and then we will get into online backups. So if you don't want to watch the Windows 8 stuff, then I will put a link to where the Windows 7 online backup stuff starts in the lesson, and just click that link and it'll skip you ahead to the point where the online backup stuff starts. So now I'm going to show you how you can access Windows backup on Windows 8. Now there's a couple of different ways that you can do it. All of them involve going to the control panel first. So if you're on the desktop, the way to open the control panel easiest is to bring up the Charms menu by putting your mouse in either the top right or the bottom right hand corner of the screen, then clicking on Settings and Control Panel. If you are in the Start menu, what you can do is start typing in Control, and you'll get about halfway through the word before you bring up these results. Just click on Control Panel and it'll open it up on the desktop. So once you've got the control panel open, there's a couple of different ways that you can access the Windows backup depending on what view you are using. So if you're using the large icons view or the small icons view like I am right now, what you need to do is click on File History, and that will bring up the Windows backup page. If you're using the category view, what you need to do is click on Save Backup Copies of your files with File History underneath the System and Security category, and it'll bring up that same window. Now as you can see here at the moment, File History is turned off. So this is how it is by default. If you've got no usable drives, then you're going to get this message here. So a usable drive is considered to be an external drive of any kind. So that's an external hard drive or a USB drive, or something like that. You can't use a CD, and you can't back up to an internal drive inside of your computer. So I'm going to plug in a USB drive right now, or an external hard drive I should say, and it will pop up very short. Okay, so I've just plugged in my external hard drive. Now it's still telling me that there's no usable drives found. This is because we need to refresh it. So if I click the refresh button at the top here, you'll see that it now picks up the drive. So what I can do now is click turn on, and it will turn file history on, and it'll automatically start saving the files the first time. Now, as you can see, if you've ever done it in Windows 7, it's a lot easier to set up, but it gives you a lot less control over what files you want to back up. You can go into advanced settings in here, and it'll let you change some options. So it'll let you choose how often you want to save copies of files, how big you want the offline cache to be, which the default is usually fine, and how long you want to keep the backups for. So by default it's forever. Forever is probably not a good idea unless you're going to keep checking your backup drive to make sure that it's not running out of space. Otherwise, I'd suggest maybe 1 month or 3 months, you know, just depending on how big of a backup drive that you have and how long you want to keep your backups for. So those are pretty much all the advanced settings. If we go back, you can tell it to exclude certain folders from file history, but it won't let you add new ones. You can select the drive, so if you want to change what drive you're backing up to, you can you know, select it in there. And that's pretty much all there is to file history. So as I said, it's kind of a double-edged sword because it's a lot easier to set up than the older version of Windows Backup, but it gives you a lot less control over what you want to back up and how often you want to back up and everything like that. There is a way around it though. If you prefer the older version from Windows 7, you can click on Windows 7 File Recovery down here, and then that's going to give you the old version of Windows Backup. So if you want to know how to configure this, follow the section in the guide where I talk about local backups for Windows 7. It is exactly the same as setting up the one in Windows 7. So, you know, just go back and follow that section if you want to know how to set that up. Alright, so that's pretty much it. That's how you use Windows Backup in Windows 8. Now, the only other thing I wanted to show you in regards to local backups was how to do a manual backup. So a manual backup is literally just copying files that you want to back up to your backup drive. So right here under computer, we've got my backup drive, which is the expansion drive E. Let's say that I wanted to back up everything in my documents folder, which I have nothing at the moment because this is a freshly built PC. So I'm just going to create a bunch of random files by clicking new text document, new bitmap image, new folder, and I'll put these files in that new folder. So let's just say that this new folder has some important information in there, stuff that I really want to keep and I want to make sure that it's backed up. To do a manual backup, what I would do is copy the folder by right clicking on it and choosing copy, or by using the keyboard shortcut for copy, which is Control and C, and then going over to my backup drive here and then right clicking on some blank space and choosing paste, or using the keyboard shortcut for paste, which is Control and V. That's pretty much all there is to a manual backup. I am literally just manually copying the files that I want to back up from my computer to a backup drive, an external drive or a USB drive or something. If we go back to documents, we'll see that the original folder is still there, and it's just creating a copy of it on this external backup drive. And that's pretty much all there is to local backups. So next up, we'll get on to talking about some online backups. Online backup programs are very similar to local backup programs, except that you don't need an external hard drive or a USB drive or something like that to store your backups on. You can get online backup software that is very similar to the Windows backup method that I showed you earlier, where you can set which files you want it to back up, and set a schedule, and it'll do it all automatically. Those ones usually cost a bit of money, but there are free ones out there as well. And then there's also online backup services that are very similar to a manual backup service. The way they work is that when you install the online backup software on your computer, it creates a folder that anything that you put in that folder is synchronized online to your online backup account. So not only are those files in that folder being backed up online, you will be able to access those files from any computer in the world by logging into your online backup account. So it's pretty handy. So the type of online backup that I'm going to be talking about in this lesson is the second one that I mentioned, which is the one that creates a folder on your desk on your computer that you can store files in to synchronize to the internet. There's three probably what I would consider to be the most popular online backup services like that. First one is Dropbox, second one's Google Drive, and the third one is Microsoft SkyDrive. So they're all pretty good. I've used all three of them before, and there's really no sort of personal preference as to which one you guys should use. But my personal preference is Microsoft SkyDrive. So that's the one that I'm going to be showing you guys how to set up. If you guys wanted to set up a Google Drive account or a Dropbox account or something like that for yourselves later on, the process is very similar to the Microsoft SkyDrive one. So if you guys wanted to play around with it in your own time, it really shouldn't be too hard for you guys. Just give it a go, see how you go. If you have any problems, then yeah, let me know, I guess. But there's one thing that you will need before you can install Microsoft SkyDrive, and that's an internet connection. Now I assume if you're watching this video on my website, you've got one, so we should be all good. Alright, so we will start by opening up our web browser and going to the following address. It's www.skydrive, all one word, .live.com. So once we enter that into our internet browser's address bar and hit enter, it will bring up the SkyDrive site. Now I just want to point out that the installation and the setup and everything of SkyDrive is almost exactly the same in Windows 7 and Windows 8. So I'm just going to go through it once on Windows 8, and if you're using Windows 7, you can follow along and it'll be exactly the same. Now, if you've already got a Microsoft account, which is, if you've got a Outlook email address or a live.com email address or a hotmail.com email address, then you can just log straight in with your normal Hotmail username and password or Outlook username and password, and it will work perfectly fine for you. You'll be able to sign in and you'll be able to download SkyDrive and it'll be all good. But just in case there's people out there who don't have a Microsoft account, I'm going to go through the process of creating one. So to do that, we'll click sign up now. If you've already got a Microsoft account, feel free to sign in, and when we get up to the step that will be the same screen that you guys are on, I'll let you know and we can go from there. Alright, so when you go to create your Microsoft account, Microsoft is going to ask you a bunch of details about yourself, such as your name. So I'm just going to call my account Backup Back. And yes, I am going to completely falsify this form, but that's just because I already have my own Microsoft account with all of my real details there, and I'm just going to delete this account as soon as we create the tutorial anyway. So I'm going to set my date of birth to the, let's say, September 25th, 85, and that's not my birthday, by the way. Okay, so Microsoft account name. So your Microsoft account name is going to be the email address that you want to use for your SkyDrive account. So I set up one earlier, which was backups0505 at gmail.com. And I will create a password. Now you may have noticed here as well, if you don't have an email address already, it gives you the opportunity to create one. So if you click get a new email address, it'll take you through all the steps of actually creating a new Microsoft email address as well. And finally, it'll ask you if you lose your password, how can they help you reset it. So you get the option of either a secret question, which I'm going to use, or you can enter your mobile number and it'll send you an SMS or something like that. So obviously the name of my first pet wasn't elephant, but that's just what I'm going to put. And then it's going to ask you what country you're from. So I'm from Australia, in case you haven't been able to tell by my accent. And I'll put the postcode for Sydney because that's where I live. And then it's going to ask you to re-enter this bunch of letters and numbers just to make sure you're not a robot. And I'm going to untick that box to send me promotional offers because I really don't want them. So once you've filled out the form with all of your correct details, you can click on I accept, and it's going to work on creating your Microsoft account. Now, it's just going to ask you to verify your email address. So what you probably want to do here is go to your email. So for me, my email is at gmail.com. And as you can see, I'm already logged in. If you're not logged in, log into your email, and you should have an email here from the Microsoft account team asking you to verify your email address. So if you open that email inside of your own emails and then click on the verify account name at gmail.com or whatever yours is, there you go, it'll verify it, it'll tell you it's all ready to go, and then you can just click on OK. So now you've got a SkyDrive account. Just remember the email address and the password that you set for that account, because you're going to need it to log into SkyDrive. Now, once you've logged in, this is where the other people who already had a Microsoft account and have signed in can join us. They'll be on the same screen. So they'll get a message down the bottom similar to this, saying get SkyDrive for Windows and download. So if you click on that download link and then click on download now, it's going to ask you about saving a file or running or whatever. So we will go with save. Now if you're using a different browser like Firefox or Opera or Google Chrome or something like that, the download prompt is going to be different, but I'm sure you've all probably downloaded files before on your browser, so you know how to download them and how to open them. So when it's finished downloading, what you want to do is run the file, and if you get a warning like this, click yes, and it's going to start installing SkyDrive on your computer. It's very, very simple, straightforward. It doesn't ask you for many prompts at the start. It just goes and installs it first, and then once it's installed, it's going to give you this welcome screen. So you're going to click on get started, and okay, so it's going to ask us to sign into our Microsoft account. So our Microsoft account is the one that we set up just before, which is our email address 0505 at gmail.com, and our password. Then we click sign in, and it's going to ask us to sign in, and it's going to give us this introduction to our SkyDrive folder, telling you where it is in Windows Explorer. So as you can see, it's going to put it below the downloads folder underneath your favorites. You can choose to change where that folder is on your computer yourself if you want, I usually just keep it at the default. The default's fine for me. So then I'm just going to click next, and now it's going to ask you what folders you want to sync. So say you've got SkyDrive installed on more than one computer, and you only want to actually synchronize certain folders inside of your SkyDrive account down to certain computers. You can actually specify that, you know, say on your work computer you only want the folder called work to be synchronized. If you're on your home computer, you want everything to be synchronized, and etc, etc. Because, you know, this is the first time you're probably installing SkyDrive, you're not going to have any folders or anything like that to choose from. So you're probably just going to want to stick with the all files and folders and click next. Now it's going to ask you about letting you use SkyDrive to fetch any files on this PC. So what that's going to do is, if you don't put something in your SkyDrive folder, it's going to still synchronize it to your SkyDrive account so that you can access it on another PC. That's a little bit dangerous, because if you've got a lot of files in your PC, you might go way over your limit of how much data you can have in your SkyDrive account. So I'm going to untick that one and leave it off, and then choose done. So here we go. It's going to open up our SkyDrive folder. So our SkyDrive folder, as you can see, by default it's got a documents folder, a pictures folder, and a public folder. So we can add new folders, we can delete those folders, everything like that. But basically, now if we wanted to back up something to this SkyDrive folder, use it as a backup folder, if we use the same example I used before, we go to the documents folder, and there's this new folder here. Say this folder has important stuff that I want to make sure is backed up online, so that if my house ever burns down and I lose my backup drive and I lose my computer, then I've still got it on the internet somewhere. Well, I'm going to right click on this and choose copy, and then I'm going to go to my SkyDrive folder and I'm going to right click and choose paste, and it's going to make a copy of that folder in my SkyDrive folder. Now you'll see here how this folder's got these two sort of blue circling arrows that have just disappeared. When those blue arrows are there, it means that it is in the process of synchronizing that data up to the internet. When they've got the green ticks, that means that you know, all the data is synchronized, and what you're seeing on your computer is exactly the same as what's online currently. When it's got the blue arrows, it means that it's either fetching new data from the internet if you've made some changes on another computer, or it's uploading changes that you've made on this computer to the internet. Now the only other symbol you'll see will be a red circle with an X through the middle, and that means that there was a problem, that it couldn't connect to the internet for some reason to synchronize the folder. If you see that, that's probably a bad thing, and it would usually mean either you don't have an internet connection, or that there was some sort of error with synchronizing a certain file. If you go in the folder, you'll see that each individual file also has those same icons on them to tell you whether they're synchronized or not. So to get a bit more information about where the problem is, if you go into a folder and you see these are all green, but there's another file with the blue arrows, then you know that that's the one that's synchronizing. If these are all green and you see one that's got a red X on it, then you know that that's the file that's having the problem. That's pretty much it. So that's online backups and how they work. Like I said, that's SkyDrive itself, but the process for Google Chrome is almost exactly the same, and it's almost exactly the same for Dropbox as well. So you know, if you'd prefer to use one of those, feel free. Alright, so we'll head on over to my PowerPoint slides again, and we'll go through a summary of everything that we've learned in this lesson, and that'll be it. Alright, so to summarize everything that we've covered in this lesson, there are two main types of backups covered in this lesson: local backups and online backups. In regards to local backups, The backup destination is a storage device that's connected locally to your PC, so a USB drive or an external hard drive, or in some cases a CD. We didn't really cover CDs here though. Windows has its own built-in backup software called Windows Backup. There's many other types of backup software available, some free and some not. I didn't actually cover that in the lesson, but yes, there's heaps out there. You can do some Google searching for free backup software, or for best backup software, and you'll get heaps of sites that tell you all about that. There's a lot more advanced backup features as well that are not covered here. These are only the basics that are covered here, but it's more than enough to get you started, especially for backing up your home computer. A lot more of the advanced stuff is stuff that big businesses and enterprises and things like that would worry about. But the stuff I covered here is more than enough to get you started with backing up your home computer. In regards to online backups, the backup destination is on the internet, so you don't need an external hard drive or a USB drive or anything like that to perform the backup. The backup software available with similar features to the advanced local backup software, it exists. Most of it costs money. You can get some that have free trials, or are free to a certain extent. The simplest backup software allows backups similar to manual local backups, and those were the types that we covered here in this lesson. So the backup software that we covered here was Microsoft SkyDrive. That's the one that I talked you through setting up and installing on your computer and using to do a manual online backup. Google Drive is another one, and Dropbox is another one. There are heaps more out there. Those are the three most popular, the ones that I've used before, and the ones that most people that I talk to tend to use. So that's pretty much it. That's the lesson on backups, done and dusted. Now, if you guys want more, as always, check out knowledgescavenger.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching these videos on YouTube. And if you have any questions or comments, comment on the website or send me an email. If you want to email me to give me some criticism, some feedback, tell me I suck, tell me my voice is annoying, I really don't care. Any feedback, good or bad, helps. So, feel free to leave it on the site. Alright, thanks guys, that's it. See you next time.